Inner conversations. We've all had them, those little voices in your head, one arguing the cause of reason, the other speaking from emotion, the sort of inner conflict you'd expect, well, Woody Allen to have. As well as making great movie material, listening to your inner voice can also provide a path to greater self-awareness. So says John K. Pollard III, creator of a technique called self-parenting and author of a best-selling book on the subject. John Pollard, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Aren't you just really referring to our conscience, the very thing that makes one person different from the next?
Well, we do have thoughts and feelings, but what we say is the thoughts are the rational, logical, left brain side of our conversations, and our feelings are the inner child, which is the emotional, energetic, happy side. So what happens is the inner parent is parenting the inner child inside our mind.
Just because there might be some sort of tussle between these two, is there any reason that there's something wrong with these actions?
No, a lot of people think that having these conversations makes them weird and they won't even talk about it. But if you actually listen and then start writing down what you think and feel, you'll see this pattern happening. It's really quite natural.
So therefore there's nothing wrong with it?
No, not at all.
Well, what's the deal then with learning about what your inner voice has to say?
Well, what happens is if you were parented negatively as a youngster, say you had dysfunctional outer parenting, then what will happen is you'll have a negative inner parent. So you'll have you'll be putting yourself down, and you won't let yourself do things that any other normal person would do. So by learning about self-parenting, you can change your negative inner parent to a positive inner parent, and then this brings the other benefits as well.
Why is it necessarily the parent-child relationship? Why do you give it that tag?
Well, it's just this, if you listen and write down what you're thinking and feeling, that's what you'll discover. That's what self-parenting has said, and that's what's happening as far as people discovering that they can parent themselves in a positive way.
Isn't it, as I said before, just your conscience?
Yeah, you know, it is, but if you want to start changing the way you think and feel, this is a very powerful method. It makes changes in ways that have never been discovered before.
Powerful for who? Who needs to change the ways and methods?
Well, I got a lot of benefits. The people in America who are benefiting most are the ones from the groups called the adult children of alcoholics. And when they were young, they had parents who were dysfunctional due to drink. So they were paying the bills and making all the decisions for the family when they were just children. So now as adults, they have low self-esteem and they have a very negative inner conversation running. So when they start practicing the half-hour sessions, they feel good in very special ways.
So you're really targeting people who have had some sort of disturbances in their childhood and haven't had a regular normal upbringing.
Well, the funny thing is all of us are self-parenting. Every one of us is self-parenting, whether we know it or not. It's just that the people who really have these negative inner conversations and want to make some changes are the people that are starting to practice the half-hour sessions.
Give us an example.
Well, one classic inner conversation is the one when you're standing in front of the refrigerator and your inner child says, "I'm hungry, I want to eat that piece of cake." And the inner parent says, "No way, you eat that cake, you'll get fat." And the inner child says, "Well, I just want one bite." And the inner parent says, "No, you'll eat the whole thing." So they do a battle like that.
But most people do that. I stand at the fridge and have a battle every time I want a piece of cake. Is there something wrong with that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're self-parenting. And if you would listen, you could tell the inner child voice and the inner parent voice.
So once you've listened to it and you've recognized it, what do you do about it if you want to change it?
Well, you want to bring the positive parenting style. You want to listen to your inner child. You want to accept your inner child. You want to nurture its needs. You want to make sure that it's happy as well as the inner parent. Usually the inner parent runs the show and the inner child doesn't get a say at all.
It's the kind of thing that Americans, I gather, really get a kick out of these sort of self-parenting awareness courses. Do you find that we're a bit more cynical in Australia?
You know, surprisingly, the Australians that find out about it really enjoy it. And it seems like it's picking up energy now.
And you don't see it as putting a leash on creativity, the sort of the part of the brain that people use to create rather than just leading with their head all the time?
Well, on the other hand, it builds creativity because the inner child is the creative part. So it's the inner parent that's usually putting down that creative, energetic part of us that stifles creativity.
John Pollard, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.